Our Audit Committee has appointed the firm of Ernst & Young, LLP, to serve as the company's independent auditors for this fiscal year, and this item seeks ratification of this appointment.
So the ratification today, the board actually believes that our auditors, Ernst & Young, who are represented here today, serve the company and serve our share owners very well. Their ratification is a routine matter, and I will take only one question on this item at this time. If there are additional questions about the ratification of our auditors, I will take those during the Q&A session at the end of the meeting. So are there any questions? And I'll take one question. Any questions at this time about the ratification of auditors? Number 9. Panel number 9.
Mr. Chairman, this is Lew Friedman. He is representing Alan Wojciech.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to ask Ernst & Young if they have done any analysis of what the various lawsuits around the world are going to cost the company. Specifically, I want to talk about Guatemala. In February 2010, a lawsuit was filed on behalf of 8 plaintiffs against the Coca-Cola company and Coke processing and bottling plants in Guatemala. What will be the policy of the company, including you, Mr. Kent, and the auditors, to deal with this case? Will you follow the morally bankrupt leadership of your predecessors by trying to cover up human rights abuses, by using public relations and phony investigations? Of course, the biggest lie was perpetrated by former CEO Isdell when he stated that the ILO, the International Labor Organization, would be investigating past human rights abuses in Colombia. The documentary, The Coca-Cola Case, described by the Boston Herald as the explosive new film, is now in at least 24 U.S. libraries and in several languages. The film made it clear that such an investigation never took place, nor did the ILO ever agree to such an investigation. The Guatemala case involves the charges of murder, rape, and torture, a replay of what Coke was involved in during the 70s and 80s in that country. The plaintiffs include union leaders and family members. What is especially troubling about this case is that it presents evidence of Coca-Cola's direct involvement in trying to suppress the facts. Coca-Cola union leader Armando Palacios and his wife and children were threatened with death on numerous occasions, and Coca-Cola union leader Vicente Chavez was subjected to violence and threats, his son and nephew murdered, and his daughter gang raped as part of a campaign of violence directed at them because of their union activities. The plaintiff's attorney, Terry Collingsworth, recently stated, quote, Coke's lawyer's first step in the case was to argue in court with a straight face that the case should be sent back to Guatemala as a superior forum. In other words, Coke wants to subject the victims of extreme violence, I'll be finished in a second, extreme violence to further violence by forcing them to litigate in a country that has clearly permitted ongoing violence against union leaders. The Guatemalan court sent it back to New York, but Coke has refused to accept this result and is opposing the transfer. Not a promising start to any assertion by Coke that it takes human rights seriously. Again, I ask, what will be the policy of the directors, Mr. Kent, the auditors, to deal with the case? Investigate or cover up?
Thank you.
Can I just mention one more thing, please? I understand that there's going to be a law possibly passed in Georgia, anti-immigration, very similar to what's happening in Arizona, which could open up our company as well as many other companies to boycotts around the world, around the country certainly. I wonder if there's a company position on this law, anti-immigration.
Well, I'll take your question on Colombia and Guatemala. We strongly maintain, as we did in prior years, that there is no truth to the allegations that the Coca-Cola bottler in Guatemala was involved in any way in violence directed at both Jose Palacios as well as Jose Vicente Chavez or their families. Let me just state that very clearly. The Coca-Cola company had absolutely no knowledge or involvement in these alleged actions. And in the case of violence against members of the Chavez family, the 2 perpetrators were sentenced to prison terms in excess of 100 years each. They had no connection, absolutely, in any way or form with Coca-Cola. And I'd like to, at this point, also reaffirm strongly our company's support of labor rights and our opposition to all forms of violence. And just one last important fact. Back in November of 2010, 5 months ago, the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York denied jurisdiction and dismissed the case, and the plaintiffs actually did not appeal the decision. So once again, we absolutely reiterate our willingness to continue working with the IUF and all other unions, NGOs, and our most vocal critics in addressing the different workplace situations brought to our attention in connection with our system's global operations. We never say we are perfect. We're always upholding the strictest guidelines, however, when it comes to rights, workplace rights. You mentioned my predecessor and ILO. Let me just say one more time. As far as that International Labour Organization, ILO, accepted requests independently made by Coca-Cola and the IUF, they accepted requests. It's documented, the request made by us and the IUF to conduct an investigation and evaluation of the Coca-Cola bottling operations in Colombia. The ILO completed its independent evaluation. It's available. We can give you a copy if you haven't seen it already. Completed its independent evaluation of the Coca-Cola bottling operations in Colombia and reported that Coca-Cola bottlers are upholding labor standards that have been ratified in Colombia, including respecting collective bargaining agreements and providing a safe working environment. And in a country where labor union membership is less than 1% or 2%, we have a labor union participation of in excess of 35%. So that's really what I would like to say based on your allegations. We won't have time right now to address your second question because we need to continue with the next items on the agenda because that is not at all relevant, the Georgia law, to the ratification of our auditors. Please, Gloria, would you continue with items 3 and 4?